Every time I start filming, I'm like, oh, the lighting in this room is so awful and it breaks my heart, but at least my highlight looks good. Hi, it's me, and today you're about to discover my shameful secret, which is that I start reading books a lot and I finish reading books like never. Which is why, according to Goodreads, as I discovered today, I am currently reading 17 books. These are all books that I started reading in the last 2 years as well, not even that long. Excuse me while I get distracted by things. So I thought it would be a fun little video idea for me to share those books with you so that you know exactly what I have not finished reading. Is that a useful thing for you to know? I don't know, I don't care, I'm doing it anyway. If you will remember, in my goals for 2019 video, I mentioned that I wanted to try and cut down on this list by actually finishing some of the books that I start and never finish. And I was going to set a number for myself of books that I would like to try and read to cut down this list of books. And I have done that, and my number is 12. So I'm going to try and read one book a month that is from this list of books that I haven't finished reading yet. First book on the list is Catch-22, which is a book that I started reading in January of the first year that I ever had a booktube channel. And I didn't finish it in that month, and then I was like, I need to make a TBR for the next month, and got distracted and added way too many more books to my TBR and never got to it, and then it fell by the wayside, and here it is on this list of books that I haven't finished reading. So Catch-22, for those who don't know, is kind of considered like a modern-ish classic. So it is set in, I believe, World War II, might be World War I. It's where the phrase Catch-22 comes from, obviously, and the idea of it is this guy is fighting in the Air Force and doesn't want to be in the Air Force anymore and tries to get out of the Air Force by pleading insanity, but the Catch-22 is that anyone who is sane wouldn't want to be fighting in the war. So the fact that he doesn't want to be fighting means that he's not insane, whereas if he does want to be fighting, it would mean that he would actually be insane and get discharged from the fighting. You get the, you know, wibbly wobbly disaster stuff. The next book on this list is The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, which I thoroughly enjoyed the part that I did read because I personally come from an atheist background and would consider myself to be an atheist as well. I read it when I was staying at home. I think I was using a copy that belongs to either my mum or my dad, unsure, and then that visit home finished and I left and came back to Melbourne and left the book there and didn't finish it. Also on this list is 12 Years a Slave, which I was listening to the audiobook of and then got sidetracked by more fast-paced, interesting books and didn't finish it. It's on the list and I would like to keep reading it. This is obviously the actual account written by Solomon Northup, who is the person whom the movie 12 Years a Slave was based on. This is actual life. Also on this list is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. This is a book that I have started reading so many times and somehow not yet finished, even though it's literally like the shortest book ever. I don't understand. I don't know why it's so hard. A Room of One's Own is, I think it's like a transcript of like a lecture that Virginia Woolf gave on women in creative fields. And the whole lecture, and therefore also the book, reads as like a stream of consciousness type narrative. So there's not really any structure to the points that are being given. She's just talking about her stream of thoughts as she muses about this particular topic and the implications of it and that kind of stuff. Also on this list is Little Dorrit by Charles Dickens, a book that I started reading actually a couple of years ago. I don't know why it's set as something that I started reading in 2017, but that's fine. And I was reading it and enjoying it, but finding it difficult to follow because Charles Dickens does the thing with the plots where the people and the things and the plot lines and the twisties and the things, and eventually it winds up and actually makes sense and all gets joined together, but I was not at that stage yet. I was still in the middle stage of tangliness. And then I watched the television adaptation of it and was like, oh, well now I know the plot line, and then stopped reading the book. But I would like to finish reading the book because I'd like to read more Charles Dickens. Also on this list is Lolita. Lolita and Lalita are different names with very different cultural backgrounds and different meanings and different connotations, which you guys have heard me talk about a few times. It's still here and I would like to read it. I don't need to talk about Lolita. I think most people know what Lolita is about and the reasons why I might find it difficult to read, so there it is. Also on this list is The Language Instinct by Steven Pinker, which is a book that I started reading when I was studying my linguistics degree, because linguistics and language and a book about linguistics and like it all makes sense. A book that I thoroughly enjoyed. It's very funny, very informative, not always accurate as far as linguistics goes. As someone who has studied linguistics, I can say that it's a little bit sensationalist when it comes to some of its talk about the science of linguistics, but that's to be expected for like a mass popularity non-fiction book. But it was very entertaining, and the only reason why I stopped reading it was because I was at uni and had to do other things for uni instead of reading books that I like. We all know the struggle. Also on this list is Tears of the Giraffe, and this is one of the books that I started reading last year and didn't finish. We're finally made it up to 2018. This was a book that I started reading because I was doing the reread of the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series. This is book 2 in that series. I read it, I took it home when I was visiting my family and read it when I was at home, and then I came back home and accidentally left it there and haven't got it back. Also on this list is The Good Immigrant. This is a book that I started reading last year for the, I think it's called Diversathon, which is the booktube readathon where you try and read more diverse books by diverse authors, and you have a bunch of prompts that you try and do, and this was one of the books from that I started reading. It's a collection of short stories written by people who have immigrated to England. The next book on this list is The Natural Way of Things, which is a book that I started reading last year, I think possibly because of Booktubeathon, I can't remember. Got mentioned in a TBR somewhere, I'll flip it up here. And I honestly was not enjoying this book at all, but I still want to give it a little bit more of a shot because I didn't get very far into it, and I have like a page number which I kind of need to reach before I allow myself to really decide whether I don't like the book and don't want to continue with it or not, and I hadn't reached it with this particular book, so I need to keep reading it at least until that point and see how I feel by then. Next up on the list is Elias, alias Grace. I always say Elias and I'm not really sure why. I don't know where that came from. Alias Grace, a Margaret Atwood book that I really enjoyed and also want to watch the TV adaptation of eventually soon. So I would like to keep reading that book at some point. I don't even know why I haven't. Probably because I got distracted by new books and new TBRs because Booktube is terrible for that. Next up on this list is Harry Potter à l'école des sorciers, aka the French version of Harry Potter. A book that I want to read because I vaguely know French and want to improve on that French and would like to read Harry Potter as a part of that improvement project. Also on this list is Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie, another book that I was really enjoying because I quite like magical realism, or fabulism as it is called for cultures that are not Latin American, which this one is because it was written by an Indian author, and there were definite elements of fabulism in it which I was enjoying. And then I don't know what happened. I got distracted. This is what I do. Next up on this list is The Palace of Tears, which is a book that I started reading for the Booktubeathon, and it is tiny as well, but I also didn't finish it because it was okay, but I wasn't really enjoying it. Next up on this list is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and this was a book that I was reading in October for my kind of spooky TBR month, and I did enjoy it, but then I watched the movie adaptation of it before I finished the book, and as soon as I do that, I kind of am like, well, why bother? But do bother. I need to bother. So I'm gonna read it eventually. Maybe I'll read it in October this year as well. That'll be fun. And then I'll rewatch it because, oh my gosh, I love the movie. The movie was amazing. Next on this list is Charlotte Bronte, A Fiery Heart. And this is a biography of Charlotte Bronte, aka an author that I absolutely adore, as based on the one book of hers that I have read. And then the final book on this list is Every Man in This Village is a Liar, which kind of doesn't really count because it's the book that I'm reading now. So it's on my currently reading list because I am actually currently reading it and have been reading it for the last month. So I'm gonna finish that first. So they're all the books that I have started reading but not finished. So I don't know. I don't know why I made that noise. I don't know why I made those hand actions. I just did. Take from that what you will. I'm gonna sign off now. I will see you for another video very shortly, I'm sure. And until then, as always, stay classic. Mwah.
Sit there and count your little fingers. Unhappy little girl blue.